a book, and a dish.
On 702.
It's that time of the week where we have a conversation with somebody you either know very well, but there's a lot about them that you don't know, or they're people that you see in the news and on television, and you hear them on radio shows, and somewhere in the back of their mind you think, oh, I wonder what else they do, apart from talk about things that are in the news. My guest today is Matthew Parks. As COSATUs Parliamentary Co-ordinator, he's often put in front of the media, or puts himself in front of the media, to talk on the big burning issues of the day, the budget, cost of living, unemployment, and all of those things. We're not going to talk about that stuff today, but we are going to talk about you, Matthew Parks. Welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me. And I must confess, I was slightly intimidated.
Oh, well, too late.
I'm used to fighting about the budget, not about...
Oh, right. No. Trust me, we're not going there. But let's talk straight away about book-related things, and we'll get into your specific book at the moment. Your mom was a librarian. Your dad was a journalist. So tell us a little bit about them and the atmosphere around reading. I would assume that they created in the home. Were books everywhere?
Yeah, there were. And my father had grown up quite poor. My mother also had grown up in very poor households, large family of about 6-7 kids born during World War II. And then, the kind of typical pull yourself up by the bootstraps stories. And my father became a journalist, worked for a lot of different newspapers all over the place. And my mother had been a librarian. Amazingly, John, she had actually gotten a master's degree in librarianship at Wits. I never knew you could do, but... So my father, he always had lots of books at home. He worked from home. He probably had about 40,000 books or something.
40,000?
So we always used to kind of discuss politics when I was a kid, because
he
was a journalist during the height of apartheid, and there'd always be communists from the ANC coming to our house, hiding from the police, etc. And he'd be one of those journalists who the police would always be irritated with and try to arrest now and then.
Yes.
So... yeah, it kind of helped me as a typical middle class white kid to not kind of go down the normal route of white privilege and try to think, well, maybe apartheid isn't something that's right, So I guess one should be grateful for that.
So I'm picturing a house with 40,000 books in which your mother is a librarian. Did she try and keep any sort of order at home? I mean, did you have to fill in little cards before you could take something to your room?
No, I think she gave up on him.
Yes.
He converted the garage into his little man cave or
office.
Yes. But she always would be a librarian at schools, sometimes at the schools that I went to, other times at Wits and so forth. So, it was an unusual household. I was the one kid in my family who was always interested in politics. My siblings were not really keen on politics, viewed it with a significant amount of disdain, but I was always a bit of a political junkie, even when I was a small young kid.
So I'm going to
high school student.
So I'm going to get to your book in a moment because it's an interesting choice. But since we're in your home and we with your siblings, your sister sadly passed away. Condolences. And she was older than you. She went into archaeology. Your brother became a teacher. What were kind of dinners like? Was it fairly formal dinner at a certain time, everybody at the table, and then you eat and talk, or did you kind of do your own things?
It is a mixed. When my father wasn't able to work, because journalists have quite horrendous working hours.
Yes.
Especially those days before the internet and those things, when they still used to use typewriters. So if he came for dinner, then you'd be formal, sit down, and I would obviously want to interrogate him about politics and ask him 1,001, irritating questions about, what did Oliver Tambo say? What does this one say? What did Big Water say? So those are useful things. And with hindsight, because your parents are no longer around, but you kind of then think, hey, I should have exploited it more because this was kind of a fountain of knowledge. At one stage, he started writing a book about the ANC in the 80s. Unfortunately, never got time to finish it. But my siblings were about a decade older than me.
Oh, okay.
So they had gone different ways. My sister had gone into archaeology, worked a lot in Cyprus and other places, and my brother got into mathematics and became a teacher. So I was always, though my brother had been a bit active at university in student politics that time, during the anti-apartheid movement, etc. So I wasn't the only one who had a got infected by politics, but I was the one who got mostly infected.
So what kind of, I mean, you list Chinese food as your favorite cuisine, and if you could take a pick, Peking duck, would I be correct in saying that there wasn't much Peking duck on the table in the Parks home? So what was there instead?
Chicken.
Okay, well, close. Close.
Close. Because journalists that time my father would work like till 2 a.m. every day, writing stories, etc. Because you know how the journalist cycle is. It's not an easy life. So often it'd be myself and my mother at home, and it'd be chicken. I never realized how much chicken I grew up, and I was like, why do I hate chicken so much? And my mother said it's because your mother fed it to you, 4 times a week as a kid.
So we know, so the chicken and egg and all of that. Your book, Up From Slavery, it's the work of the autobiography of Booker T. Washington. He was an enslaved person as a child during the Civil War, became an immensely educated and influential people. Some might say, even with your interest in politics, a relatively I wouldn't want to say obscure, but a very particular read. Did you go looking for that book, or did someone pass it on to you and say, you got to read this?
No, I just stumbled onto it by chance. I think many people would have, kind of our circle of life, people who are interested in politics, would have heard about Booker T. Washington.
Yeah.
I was interested, and I read the book, and I often try to read memoirs to see what people's lives were like, where different parts of the world, what kind of struggles they went through, what achievements they did, and I found his life story amazing because he was an African American slave in the U.S. Experienced liberation from slavery. Obviously had no education. Obviously went through a horrendous life.
Yeah.
Yet managed to become a founder of an African American university at Tuskegee in Alabama. Managed to go and fundraise, and it was based upon self-help. Let's make the university out of our own hands as former freed slaves. We'll get donations for timber or for nails or whatever. And I just found that such an amazing thing. That university is still around, 150 years later after slavery is over. I just thought, because it's always good to hear about people who do good for the world.
Yeah.
I just thought, out of nothing, you were a former slave, and now you founded a university. You had no education. So I just thought, then you compare it to our lifestyles as kind of pampered people in the 21st century.
Yeah.
And it's like we complain about so much, yet this man achieved so much with so little against all odds. So I always found it an amazing, an inspiring story, if you can put it that way.
Yeah. Matthew, I mean, a lot of your work is around really serious stuff. There's not a lot of light moments. I mean, what are your diversions? Do you read thrillers? Do you binge watch Netflix? I mean, or are you really quite consumed with the things that represent the work you do?
Look, it's easy. I mean, I've been in politics, 30 plus years in different formations, the ANC, COSATU, etc. It's difficult. I mean, as you explore any job, if you have too much work, you can get burnt out. I found that it can consume you. So I do try to do a couple of things, to clear the mind. So I try to read a book or 2 books a week, about some place nothing to do with South Africa, maybe about Algeria, or I finished a book about the Soviet war in Afghanistan, just to clear the head from our normal chaos of South Africa. But it's also critical to spend time with your family, because at the end of the day, whatever challenges you will have in life, your family is ones which will always be loyal to you, and often we neglect them, and we should actually spend more time with them. I'm also, John, I must confess, I'm very much a white middle-class person for all my sins, and I have 3 dogs. I always try to go walk them every day to clear their head as well, just have a bit of a quiet time away from all the normal dramas of work and life.
Indeed, and of life. But, and I mean, in the union movement, you've either got to be able to sing, or you've got to be able to position yourself carefully with other people who can sing really well, so that your singing is not immediately obvious. Although I don't think it's a choir, but it's certainly a prominent part of trade union life here. Are you any good at singing?
I'm an unmitigated disaster. I don't even try. I try to avoid any embarrassment. That thing about white men can't jump? I think they must extend that to white men are tone deaf. So.
No, just you, Matthew, I'm afraid. Do not bring us all with you into your singing ineptitude. But you chose a Chicco Twala song with real significance. It was called "We Miss You, Manelo," but the way he sang it, and in the times in the 80s, everyone heard it as "We Miss You, Mandela." And in fact, when Chicco Twala met Mandela, he said, "I just want to tell you, not Chicco, but Mandela said, my name is not Manelo." But of all the songs, you picked that one. Tell us why.
I mean, look, so became of consciousness in the 80s. The height of apartheid and all of that. And there was a lot of inspiring, musicians. So, Sipho Hot Six Mabuse, Hugh Masekela, Mary Makeba, Ladysmith Black Mambazo, etc. And that one, it was a really powerful song. I think a lot of our artists or musicians really had a lot of courage.
Yeah.
That I remember, John, how brutal it was in the 80s to be so defiant to the police. I think they kept the flame alive. I think, those songs also were very popular overseas. And I think they helped the rest of the world to get a connection to South Africa's struggles, to give support. I think they gave inspiration to South African exiles living across the world. And
yes.
And I even think for people in South Africa alive across racial divides, I think it plays a huge role. I think often we kind of underestimate how musicians really played quite a significant role in just inspiring people. So it's difficult to choose a favorite song, but I thought, that one, as you were saying, it was really a symbolic one,
Yeah, and you've made a great choice because it's a fabulous piece of music. Matthew Parks, COSATUs Parliamentary Co-ordinator, sharing with us